Welcome to YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss and sponsored by Health Payment Systems. I'm your host, David Bellman, president of Bellman Homes. On YG Roundtable, we bring together a select few industry leaders to share their secrets to success on a multitude of topics. Today, we'll be talking LinkedIn, and specifically the tips and tactics that can make you more money. You won't want to miss this. Let's meet the experts.
Hey everybody, I'm Wayne Breitbarth, the author of The Power Formula for LinkedIn Success, now in its 4th edition. I help individuals and organizations leverage their LinkedIn for business success and career success.
Hi, I'm Sue Gresham, the LinkedIn Lady. I am the CEO and founder of Innovative Client Solutions, an agency that works with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and job seekers and coaches, helping them use LinkedIn to brand themselves and to grow their business.
Hi, I'm Clarine Mitchell, owner of TCM Communications. My business is focused on empowering success-driven entrepreneurs and executives to leverage LinkedIn and generate results.
Max Weiss is a company that does it right the first time. A company that sets the curve in excellence. Rolled, curved, formed, forged, fabricated. A company that delivers on time. A company that drives innovation forward. A company that has satisfied customers for over 75 years. Anything metal, Max Weiss Company. Call or visit us online to learn more about Max Weiss Company.
For more than 80% of families, today's medical billing practices are confusing. At HPS, our goal is to improve the healthcare experience for the patient by making medical bill payments less stressful. In Wisconsin, that's all made possible by our comprehensive independent healthcare provider network. We simplify billing and lower costs for everyone involved in healthcare and offer various ways for individuals to pay without breaking the bank.
LinkedIn is one of the most powerful platforms on the internet, and it's a great place to build your own personal brand and new business connections. And I am joined today by LinkedIn royalty here. We've got Clarine Mitchell, Sue Gresham, and Wayne Breitbarth here on LinkedIn Roundtable. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. This is great.
All right, so let's begin right away. There's a lot to talk about on LinkedIn. It's just such a great platform these days. And so let's start right from the beginning. I'm gonna direct this question to Wayne first. What are the most important things and elements that you should include in your profile?
Boy, you're starting right at the top, aren't you?
Yeah, we're going right for that. We're going right for the guy.
But let me just stop you and pull back a little bit, because until you set your strategy, I mean, as I'm doing consultations with now, been doing this for 12 years, I ask people, what's your strategy before we even get into their profile or their connecting strategy? And I'll get crickets a lot of times, right? That they haven't really thought through who they want to meet, what they're trying to accomplish. And that sets the pace for what you're going to say in your profile, and what you're going to post, and who you're going to connect with. And until you've done that, I think you've made a huge mistake. You're just hoping that LinkedIn's going to do something for you because you got one. Right? Sure. So I think it starts with that. I think it starts with making sure that they've clearly defined, I'm on LinkedIn to meet these kind of folks and accomplish these kind of goals, and and establish myself as this, right? Or whatever that might be. So, but to get back to the most important profile, what was your question again?
So I guess, what are the most important things you should have in your profile?
Well, can I add, even before you get into those details, Wayne, you started with the importance of strategy, right? I want to add, even on top of that, going to LinkedIn before you need it. Quite often, people get on the platform, and I was guilty of it years ago, but getting on only when we need something from it, and then we're expecting immediate results, but then no one knows us. You know, we don't have that established credibility, that we don't have, you know, that network and that body of work for people to see us as a subject matter expert, right? Or for people to even care about us. So having that strategy is good before we even start talking about building out the profile, but using the platform before we need it. That way we don't get those false starts or that disillusionment because it's not working for us. Before it can even work for us, we have to have ourselves established without wanting something immediately in return.
You are so right.
So Sue, what do you think about that?
Well, and I totally agree with both because that's where we need to start. But the other thing we need to keep in mind is that our reasons are going to change, and they should change. And so we need to be nimble and flexible with that. You know, I started on LinkedIn years ago looking for a job. Well, then I started my own company, and so I'm not looking for a job now. I'm looking for clients. And so we need to keep our purpose and our reason still in front of us throughout the entire time, not just when we set up.
So what you're saying is it's natural for, you know, your goals and your strategy to change over time. So I want to jump back to Wayne's point for just a second. You mentioned strategy is really important with LinkedIn. Why don't each of you take one strategy that people should incorporate, or what should they be thinking of as far as a strategy? You know, I know you kind of started it with, you know, who do you want to reach? But okay, what other strategies should people start their list with? I'll start with you, Wayne.
So I think it's, how do you want people to feel after they've read your profile? What's the takeaway that you want? What's really the goal or the call to action? You know, you're setting your profile up so that people respond somehow, right? And so think of that in mind, and then you craft a profile to take them down the path to ultimately it's, would you like to have a complimentary call? Would you like to connect with me because I've got this going on, or right? Or
so what you're saying is don't start with the ask right away.
Don't just start with your resume. See, that's the thing. Right. Because it's got resume boxes, people say that's the starting point. And they look at it, looks like my resume, Wayne. It's good, right? I said, well, maybe if you're looking for a job, maybe, but you just told me you're not looking for a job. Yours just looks like a resume. That's all it looks like. There's no call to action. There's no, I don't understand why you'd want to meet me, and you reached out to me for a connection request, right? So I think knowing what you want the reader to do when they get done, and people in your target audience. It's okay if people read your profile and they're not in your target audience, they go, okay, seems like a nice guy, but I'm not interested. That's fine. Oh, yeah. It's just when there's no clarity.
Correct.
Like, what do you want me to do if I'm even the right people?
Sure. Yeah. Sue, how about you for strategy? What do you think is a good element?
So a great element is to build off of that. After you've got the eyes on you, you really have to figure out who it is that you want to be connecting with, and most importantly, why you want to connect with them. And so a strategy is, you've got to set up your list and do your homework and pay attention to who it is that you want to add to your network, because your network will help with all of the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Sure, and they're probably not going to see you unless you're connected with them, correct?
Well, that's a chance, unless you're connected to a lot of other people that see them.
And then they engage, right?
Right.
How about you, Clarine? What strategy do you think is important to include?
One of the biggest strategies is being your biggest fan.
Okay.
So my whole philosophy is to get the traction or the results you want from LinkedIn, you have to shine on the platform. You have to stand out like a golden egg, and doing that means you're being your biggest fan. So if you want other people to gravitate to you, you have to exude that energy, that confidence in yourself, that belief that you are the best at what you do. So being your biggest fan.
You know, what's interesting about that, David, I remember when I first started teaching LinkedIn, when I brought up the point that Clarine's bringing up, be your biggest fan. And write about your accomplishments and the things you've done. Be proud of it, right?
Sure. Okay.
There was this this Wisconsin thing, like, that's bragging.
Being too arrogant.
Mom told me never to brag, right? So, and that's the problem is, if you don't put your best foot forward and tell your best stories, and your competitors are doing that on the platform, then guess what? Who's getting the first call?
Absolutely. Right. That's great advice. So.
And I love the comment too about your best stories, okay? Because people want to be, they want to be entertained in a way, So you want to be telling about not just what you do, but how you do it. Absolutely.
Sure.
And make it so that it's engaging and first person. I think probably one of the biggest mistakes I see is the people that are still using it as a resume, third person, past tense, instead of actually talking about themselves like they're a real person.
I love the feedback on this story because I think people sometimes get so caught up in this is what I do this, I do that. That's not interesting, right?
That's like being a robot, right? It's very dry and monotonous. So making sure that we're not approaching LinkedIn like it's Indeed or, the job websites. Right. Because it's so much more than that. It's a social media platform. You're meant to be social, right? And it's meant for you to engage and be, vibrant on the platform and active and consistent. Unlike on Indeed and or Monster or all of the Career Builder. And those are fine, but those are websites and they're static. You just load up your resume or you plug in your information and then you go away and you let the system do the rest of it. No, it's up to us on LinkedIn to put our best self forward and actively use the platform.
That's a good point. And I think one of the challenges with LinkedIn is it's really evolved over the years because I think originally when it started, it was a job-seeking platform first and foremost, but it's kind of evolved. Where do you see LinkedIn today?
Today is a whole different world with LinkedIn, and it's an exciting time because the platform has really taken a turn where it's giving the users more options, right? Where you can engage at whole different levels, more features. You can publish newsletters. You can do LinkedIn Lives. There's so much more that you can do on the platform than you could just do a few years ago, 5 or 10 years ago. And it is meant to be for everyone, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're executive, whether you're a retired person and you want to give your expertise and build community, whatever the case may be, wherever you are in your journey, there's a place for you on LinkedIn, I say.
Do you guys agree with that?
For sure. Yeah. And I think the reason it was thought of a job seeker platform in the beginning is just because of the way the profiles looked. Correct. We're back to that again.
Yeah, it started off like a resume template,
so
right?
then that's what it's used for.
Yeah.
And now it's, like Clarine said, it's so much more. It can be so much more to grow your business. I mean, I know people now that aren't even doing websites because they're LinkedIn, right? Think about it.
I'm guilty.
There you go.
It's comprehensive. If you
is.
actively use it for all the features, because you can have, as entrepreneurs, we can have company pages, right? But there's so many features, you can use it comprehensively.
Exactly.
So
the
why
featured
not
section
do
in
that?
LinkedIn Live, like you're mentioning, is I really wonder why you would really want to have another thing you got to maintain, another thing to get confused by, another thing to write a check for.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
No way.
You change one thing, you got to go to 10 different pages to update everything, right? So you mentioned something that I wanted to get into, and since you brought it up, I'm going to bring it up right now, and that's the personal profile versus the company profile. And I think people get confused about, again, the strategy behind that and where you should go with that. So maybe, Wayne, do you want to start off any thoughts on the differences between the two and how people
not
should
to start
use
to
them?
be Debbie Downer on this question, but the company profile is probably not going to take you to the promised land.
Yeah.
And companies want that to be the case because they're in control of that. And it's not going to happen unless you write big checks to LinkedIn every month for LinkedIn advertising. Otherwise, I still like company pages. They're important to have. Google likes them and all that stuff. But they're not going to get done what you need to get done by, let's say, your sales team using their profiles really well to reach out to decision makers. So the difference is it's a corporate spot. And for people like us that run small businesses that are us, it's going to sound sort of like us, other than maybe you write your company page in a third person.
Sure,
right?
and I think, Sue, I'm going to ask you this, but would you agree that people buy people first, they don't buy the company first? So do you think that's kind of why it falls on deaf ears?
I think that's part of it. I think the other thing too is that people are not on LinkedIn to be sold to. Sure. They're on LinkedIn to learn, and they're on LinkedIn to network and all of the rest of those things. And with a company page, you start to think advertising. You start to think, in that mindset. And so I think that's one of the reasons. Another reason, I'll jump in real quick on this, is that it's one more thing that people have to follow, okay? And so, it's one thing that when they're following you and connecting with you personally, but especially for those of us that are small business people, it's just one more place to have to ask somebody to pay attention to us.
Absolutely.
And it gets to be a little difficult.
It gets crowded, right? It's a crowded market. So let's talk for a second about no-nos, all right? There's a lot of no-nos on LinkedIn and things that you probably shouldn't be doing, and you see people do them, and you're like, oh no, why did you do that? So, Clarine, I can see you're smiling, you're ready to go. What's a no-no?
Oh, there's a whole list
we'll
I can
around.
share, but I'm gonna go on one that's top on my mind right now is the term broetry. And so when it comes to LinkedIn, with broetry and then other tricks that people or tactics that people are using, and I'll define broetry.
Yeah, I need to know what that is because I'm confused.
So broetry is relatively new, but it's where people use extra spacing to bait you in. It's the mindset of getting people to click on your profile, and that's going to on your post, and that's going to help with the algorithms and more people to see and engage. And it's really some carryovers that people are taking from other social media platforms like Instagram and others and bringing to LinkedIn. And people just not realizing or understanding that LinkedIn is a total different world than those other platforms.
Gotcha. So is it like, you wouldn't believe what happened to me, ...
or double or triple spacing,
Gotcha.
where when you're looking at it initially, it's just that one line, that one sentence, and then a whole bunch of space, and then you like, well, what? And so you have to click on it to be able to read the rest. So that bait,
It's like a clickbait. Okay.
It baits you
Gotcha.
in.
Okay.
And
but that's a no-no. You don't want to do that.
It's a no-no, not just
Okay.
from Clarine, but LinkedIn CEO and management. They have published information about, because their preference is dwell time. How are people really taking and seeing value in your post, so much so that they're spending significant amount of time instead of just clicking? And so the main point is not using those tricks, heavy loading of hashtags. That doesn't work on LinkedIn. That confuses the algorithms, and then it just shuts down and totally ignores your posts.
Gotcha.
So
You don't want that.
no, LinkedIn is different. There's certain best practices and strategies that are unique to LinkedIn versus other platforms.
And we're going to get to some of those best practices in a little bit, but I want to hear some more no-nos. That was a good one. How about Sue? Do you have a no-no on LinkedIn?
Sure, I have a few,
Okay.
obviously. I'm going to go along with with what Clarine was talking about when you're doing your posts. Tagging people, and the over tagging that's happening, or the app mentioning is another way to put it. Especially the no-no is when it's not even something that's relevant to them. Where you're just trying to take someone just in order to
You're like,
get
hey,
leadership.
Wayne's got a lot of followers.
Yeah.
I'm going to just tag him and hopefully, steal his audience, right?
And hopefully he'll jump in and he'll comment, and then that's just going to add more eyes, and it's going to raise me up.
So they call it tag spamming, right?
I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's definitely to me that's super annoying.
It's a big no-no. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. How about Wayne? What's a no-no?
My biggest no-no is never send a connection request without a note.
Okay, yep, that's a good one
if
too.
you want somebody to join your treasured asset, your network, and their treasured asset, their network, you should at least be respectful enough to say why, what's going on, who sent you there, even if it's your best friend. Your best friend is still, hi, how you doing?
Sure.
Can't believe we're not connected,
Yep.
let's do that.
Yep.
Right.
But that note is so critical. And the problem with LinkedIn is the design of the mobile app. When you hit connect on the mobile app, it doesn't ask if you want to send a note. You got to know that you got to hit the 3 little dots, and then you can get the note. And so it's a bad design.
Yep.
Because if 2/3 of the people are using their mobile app, then 2/3 of the people don't know that 3 dots is how you get to the note. And so it's just bad design.
Sure. Well, I have a no-no I'm going to add as a business owner, and this is one that annoys me a lot on the platform, as somebody connects with me. Yeah, and all of a sudden I get this 5-paragraph message saying how I got to use them and I got to hire them and they're the best and we need to set up a meeting immediately, and I'm like, bye-bye, right?
Do you disconnect right away?
I don't.
Good.
Yeah.
I've done it.
I do.
Yeah,
Me too.
Okay, so you recommend that?
Right
if they do
away.
that.
If they're
Okay.
going to do that, I'm going to do this.
Right. So to what you were saying, David, it's all about LinkedIn, and going back to what you said before, Sue, about people, it's not about the direct selling on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social selling platform. So it's building relationships and credibility with people. People do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Correct.
If you just sent me a connection invite and I accepted like 10 seconds ago, and now I get spammed with these salesy messages, I'm gonna disconnect. because I don't know you, I don't trust you. You know, like, or
Correct,
trust
yeah.
you, and it's disrespectful.
At least buy me a drink first, right?
Don't go to first,
Yeah,
first
exactly.
base.
Yep.
Don't go to third.
Yeah, like take some dating rules and put it into LinkedIn, right? Like you don't just go ask out
Right.
the date, right? You gotta build that relationship
me up,
first.
warm me
Yep,
up.
Yep, there you go. I love it. So let's talk a little bit. What do you think is an underrated feature on the platform? What's something that is there that maybe people aren't using?
My number one is the publishing feature.
Okay.
So publishing articles. Going back to something you said before, Wayne, about, websites. Why use a website when you can have it comprehensive, but even blogs? When you can publish articles on LinkedIn and get a lot of traction from doing that and be set up as a thought leader and in your industry. So publishing actual articles on LinkedIn is an untapped resource, I believe.
Okay. Wayne, what do you
I think the new featured section on the profile, which came out during COVID, is really a
Yes.
gift.
Yes.
Where high visibility, very high on the profile, a place where it clicks and goes right to your website.
Oh, nice.
Or
Okay.
right to a PDF, or right to a PowerPoint, or I'll tell you what, that's a beautiful feature that if you used to look at most of the profiles, it's not there.
Right.
Okay, people just aren't
People didn't
using
know
it.
they have it or how to
Yep.
get it.
Okay.
Or people are underutilizing it, I see, where they're putting their post in that, or popular posts or posts they want more traction on, versus taking people to their website, or versus taking people to a media opportunity they had, a blog interview or a PDF document or whatever. It's the spotlight and highlight key accomplishments or items versus a post that
So you think that should be
utilizes.
like your best thing?
Oh,
Is
And
that
I don't
the-
mind a post, it's a carousel
Sure.
that slides
Yep.
over, having a post in there every now and then. But I think, like Clarine said, why not have it be a link to your testimonial page? Why not have it be a PowerPoint you presented to show your thought leadership and your expertise? Why not have it be a video where you were presenting somewhere or your product does these things, right? It's beautiful. I mean, I think, to me, when that came out during COVID, I said, boy, that could have been a premium profile feature, which we have none. There is no such thing as anything on your profile that's premium. But boy, it's a beautiful feature that people would have paid for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So let's move on for a moment and talk a little bit more about posting and creating effective posts. And I'm going to turn it to Sue first. What do you think is the best way to create engagement with your content?
Well, obviously you have to have a strategy to start with, right? You have to have something that you want to say that's meaningful to your audience. And to post just to post is really a waste of time, especially the way the algorithm has changed a little bit with the eyes, as you were talking about earlier. So one of the popular things that's out there now are polls. And now I haven't actually done any polls. Have you? I'm sure you have.
A couple.
Yeah.
Don't like them, but
We did
but
one
they
for
get a
you.
lot of push.
But they get a lot of
Yeah.
push.
They get a lot of push.
They get a lot of push.
Yeah.
So if you've got a great question that you really want to use, and maybe use it as a learning tool
Sure.
for your audience versus what do you like better,
We
coffee
did
or
one
tea?
for Young Guns. We had a couple speakers and we did a poll on it, and it was phenomenal. People were jumping in, and then of course the speakers were saying, "Hey, make sure to vote for me." And so it created a lot of engagement. It created a lot of excitement. So I think if you do it with the right intent, it can be good. But if
Exactly.
you're just throwing one up every day, it's probably not effective. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Colleen, any thoughts on effective posts? Anything that you think we should put in there?
The biggest thing is being consistent. So you should have a reason for your post, as you were saying. So not just to be posting and be posting, but you should have some consistency. Because if you don't have your consistency, you're going to get lost in the algorithms. You're going to be out of sight, out of mind. And as Bill Gates said, content is king, right? And so it's important that you stay consistent with your content, but use it as a way of telling stories. So being interesting, intriguing, having posts that really highlight what you do without being salesy, right?
Yep.
And giving people a glimpse into your professional, your business life, and accomplishments, failures, whatever. You know, being open and transparent and authentic. That's the biggest thing. Don't try to be like someone else.
Okay.
You know,
That
I'm
makes
not going to try to, you know, replicate what Sue does or what Wayne does. You know, you have to be authentic, be you.
Okay, I like it.
I mean, the post that, if you look at the numbers on a post, the ones that seem to perform best are the ones that bring emotion.
Okay.
Or you bring a little personal stuff to the story, right? And that's hard for us to know because we don't want to go all Facebook, right? Because we see that's on Facebook all over the place and we go, yuck, right? But I think if you can get a little of that, it appears that those are the ones where you'll get the most engagement. So it's like Clarine said, if you've got this idea, here's a LinkedIn strategy that you want to get across in this post, why not tell a story behind it as to how it maybe helped you or how it helped a client? There's some emotion in that story,
Gotcha.
and you're still getting to this is the tip, right?
And it's counterintuitive a bit, right? Because it's like, it's a business platform, and so you want to try and not get
you
too
think you got to
personal,
cut right to the tip.
Yeah.
But I think it's the engagement of the emotion that people go, they keep reading. They keep reading, and so I think that's just hard for us in our business role to think that we're supposed to do that.
Okay.
And it's been difficult for me to make that
Absolutely.
transition.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I do have that as a question, and that's about being controversial on LinkedIn. And there are some people that are, you're laughing, but there are some people that are kind of controversial, and they have a huge following. Is that an effective strategy? Is that something people should employ? Wayne, what do you think about that?
It boils back to why you're using the platform in the first place. If you are trying to get a bunch of eyes and be sort of controversial, and that's your brand and your strategy, well, then it could be the greatest thing you ever did. If you're trying to be a keynote speaker at events and realize that you probably turned off 80% of the people, and you're not Gary Vaynerchuk, who can drop swearing F-bombs all the time, he can do that. The rest of us, if we tried to be controversial like that, we go, nobody's going to hire me. Not here in Milwaukee, right? So I think that it doesn't fit my personality. I'm a CPA and by background, and I'm very conservative, and so I'm really careful. And you got to stay with you, right? You got to stay with you. So when you find people that are doing that, good for them if that works for them, right? Do I think it belongs on LinkedIn? Not really.
Sure.
But what do I know? Look at they're making their living doing their thing. Good for them,
Absolutely.
right?
So what do you think about controversy?
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I'm a little on the conservative side too about being just not wanting to go out there too much, you know? So I look at those and I just go, ooh, when I see them.
Because, once you post it out there, right, it's there for the world to see. So while your intention might be good, you might be setting yourself up for something down the road that maybe you don't want. Right. Whether it's a contract that might be coming in and they see that and go, maybe that's not somebody I want to do business with. Right. Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit too about, we talked about the company page, but there's some confusion out there as far as like tagging your own company in your posts and stuff like that. Do you guys have some mechanical tips on how to do that more effectively so that you're not, automatically syncing your post before you even start it? Any thoughts on that?
Sometimes it can be overkill, the process. Unless there's specific value, especially with entrepreneurs, because a lot of times, and one of the don'ts, I would say specifically for entrepreneurs, is just going to LinkedIn when you have something to promote. Okay. I see that just across the board with a lot of entrepreneurs when they have an event coming up or something, then they go on to LinkedIn and promote. And then they're ghost the rest of the time and not building community. But when you tag your own company page and do it consistently all the time, it's too self-serving, right? Okay. And so there's strategies, and there is value in having a company page. But there's separate strategies that you should use to promote and to leverage that company page. Another thing people do inappropriately is they'll share something from their company page to their personal page instead of taking the time making another organic post specifically on the personal profile. Okay. And so taking the time, investing in time and effort to be organic with all of your posts, as opposed to just doing the over tagging or the oversharing from one to another, so that you can get more leverage or more traction from it.
I would suggest, though, when it comes to a hashtag, to come up with a hashtag that you own.
Okay.
And put that hashtag in the bottom of your own post and your company page post. And the reason I like to do it is because you can find your posts.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
It's so hard to find stuff on LinkedIn when it gets a little dated and old.
Right. Sure.
But if you at least have that like I always use hashtag Wayne's World. Right?
Yep.
And
Wayne's World.
And
Wayne's
granted,
World.
when I search,
that's a throwback.
Yeah, that's all right. It's all good. Yep.
So when I
Hey, it's
search,
Quebec. They've got commercials now with Wayne and Garth. Yep.
yeah, I did, and I have a hat and a wig.
Right.
There you go. Well, why didn't you bring
At
it?
one event, I thought I'm going to play this up a little bit, and
Yep.
we're going to do the whole
Yep.
thing, and we did it. But the beauty of it is, if you go up and search in the search box, put hashtag Wayne's World, my posts will all come up. Now, there will be some videos of Garth and the guys, right?
Sure.
Which is okay. People
Yeah.
sort of, to be tied in with something funny, and that, since that's a little bit of my personality, it's beautiful, right?
Yep. You can be
But I think
memorable.
having that hashtag is for indexing, that if your company and your influencers in your company always use this hashtag, at least is one of the hashtags they use.
Yeah, at least you can find it and kind of for posterity pull it back up. I think that's a great point.
What Wayne is referring to is having a moniker. And so I have one
Okay.
as well, the LinkedIn Results Igniter. So as entrepreneurs, as individuals as well, connected or related to your area of expertise, having that moniker allows you to, for indexing purposes, and even going back to what was stated before about Google and search engine optimization, Google loves LinkedIn. And when you use those monikers or those hashtags consistently, it gives you greater digital footprint as well. Because when you put it in, quite often, sometimes that content will come up and you have it as breadcrumbs to get people to you in your LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
And you mentioned a comment about actually owning it. There's a website, TWUBS, TWUBS, where you can go and register your a hashtag. Wow. And you can pay a fee, and it'll do a search and make sure that it isn't owned by anybody else. But if you've got something, now Wayne's World probably is owned by them. But,
You're gonna have to buy that one out if you want that one.
and LinkedIn is probably owned by LinkedIn. But there are things out there, and you can, and then that way you've got it across all platforms, and you can use it like you were talking about, versus just on LinkedIn.
Okay. So that's great, and since we're on, we'll do one more question on hashtags, and I want to talk a little bit about links, okay? But so hashtags, what's an optimal amount of hashtags? Because it seems like, and I know this will probably change from when we recorded this today to when this is published, and when people watch it, it's probably going to change tomorrow. But what do you think right now, knowing what you know, what's an optimal amount of hashtags?
I've heard 3 to 10.
3 to 10?
And that's what I think. There's a Richard something or other does a lot of research on posts, and his last two research articles have said that 3 to 10.
Okay, you guys agree with that?
I tell my clients 3 to 5, no more. You know, and making sure that they're relevant to what your post is about.
Okay.
And connected to your target population or your target audience, but not doing the overkill. And again, when you do the overkill, the algorithm just ignores your post. It buries it. It doesn't populate it.
Right.
Okay.
And you could be attracting the wrong people if you're using the wrong hashtag too.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And
Okay.
there
Back
is
to the
something about
strategy,
that
right?
too.
Yep.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I'm with you. I do the 3 to 5.
Okay.
And
Seems like a good safe number.
kind of err a little bit on the less side.
Okay.
Right.
And so maybe one of them is that unique moniker that you talked
Right.
about, and then maybe 2 or 3 others that are relevant, maybe keywords in your post that you
Right.
want people to find. Okay,
Right.
that makes sense. All right, so let's talk about links for a second, because I think that's also a very confusing item to users on LinkedIn. It's called LinkedIn, but links, and where do I put my link? Do I put it in the post? Do I make a separate comment? What's the best procedure for that? Because it seems like it's all over the place.
Yeah. What do you say? I want to know what you
Well,
say, Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah.
The crazy algorithm is not user friendly. So if you put a link in a post, which is user friendly, right? It brings up the box, sends you to the website. It's easy for people. Oh, I want to sign up. I want this. That's easy. But our algorithm doesn't like that.
Sure. Well, yeah,
because it sends people off of LinkedIn.
You're taking them off their platform, right?
But on the other hand, if you drop a link into what is the first comment when you write it, that comment is hard to find later when there's a whole bunch of comments.
Gotcha.
Because LinkedIn doesn't do it in order or anything. They'll do by best or whatever they call it.
Recent and relevant.
So that's the point. You're doing your user a disservice.
Sure.
By doing that, yes. Will you get more numbers? By putting it in there? Probably.
Putting it in where, though? I'm sorry.
Putting it in like the first comment.
Okay, gotcha.
So what I've been trying to do is this, because LinkedIn tends to like a lot of words in your comment, in your post.
Okay.
I've been trying to take a blog post article and maybe take, if it's the 3 points of doing this, this, and this, right? I'll take the first one and cut and paste the entire first one so people can learn the first one. Gotcha. And then at the bottom, I'll say for the full article, you can click here. And I will post the link so that it really goes to my website. And just live with the fact that it won't perform as well as if I buried it. But at least I haven't just gone, here's an article, click here to get it. Yep. I've given them value with that first of the 3 tips,
I think
right?
you struck the value, right? You have to provide some value to people.
Yeah.
Because people have a limited attention span. They have a limited amount of time that they're going to engage with something before they move on to something else. So you've got to provide.
And LinkedIn knows that if you only put a short sentence and a link to your blog post, that's going to do terrible. That's going to just do terrible because it doesn't get people to read a whole bunch of stuff. So, the algorithm, it sometimes makes sense, and I think in that case it makes sense, that they don't want people to just bait you over to some other place.
But the other thing too is that I'm sure you've noticed, LinkedIn doesn't, it's not going to say, your website name, it's going to change it to LNKD or something. It's their own, they have their own like bit.ly type thing that they're doing. And so for some people back in the day, it was great to show your whole website name. Now people don't really know where they're going.
Gotcha.
And so that's a
You can use your own bit.ly if you want, and if it's not short enough, then they won't shorten it.
Right.
But like Sue said, you can't see your website anymore from the link. It won't sit there anymore.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think I understand why LinkedIn does what it does, right? Because they want you to stay there because they want people to buy advertising and stay on their platform. So they don't want you going off. But so you guys would suggest maybe either putting it at the very end of your post if the strategy is just to, maybe you don't want to see as many people see the post, but you want to convert those few. Otherwise, it's okay to put it in the comments. Is that kind of? Because I'm still confused. I'm still confused.
She's got something. I want to hear what Clarine's got here.
So my strategy, I love for the appearance of my LinkedIn content to be clean. And I don't want to make it challenging for people, right? And so I keep it in the post itself as far as my link. I add the value and then I put the link there as opposed to in the first comment. So people get everything right there.
Okay.
But I want to make the point of, quality versus quantity and not focusing as much on the numbers part of it, but really, because you can get a smaller number, but if that smaller number is quality people, the exact people that you're trying to reach or you're trying to connect with or engage with, that has greater value than having tons of views or, so, gotcha. But they're also about the algorithms. Don't worry about the algorithms. Okay. Algorithms are always changing on all of the platforms, including LinkedIn. Get your strategy going. Get your consistency going. Get your rhythm of how you post and your content and not worry about the algorithms because you're always going to be switching up if you're worrying about the algorithms because something new will come out, some new rule or some new process, and then you're
chasing the shiny object all the time, right?
Right.
You're never going to catch it, right? It's always moving.
What's interesting, David, is that people are so driven by those numbers. And so when I'm doing a consultation, I'll say, well, this post, the numbers look pretty good on this one or whatever. And they, but I used to do better. And I said, well, forget doing better with those numbers. Do you ever click the like to see the full list of people and contact any of those people that are in your target audience? Crickets.
Yep.
And I'll go,
Time to work.
I said, look,
There you go. I love it.
those are the 10 people that raised their hand and said, I liked what you wrote.
Yep.
And as long as they're the right title, why aren't you reaching out to them?
Sure.
Don't worry about the raw total numbers. Those are your folks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like to use my business
But
as an
it's
example,
the work,
right?
Clarine. It's the work.
Yeah, I sell houses, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to get 5,000 people that are going to build a house from me if I put a post up. But if I get one person that actually raises their hand, and it's the only person engaged with my post, and they buy a house, that was worthwhile, right? So sometimes you have to look at that. What are you selling? And,
I mean, I had a client the other day. We did that exact thing during a consultation. I said, let's look at this post that got 14 engagements, and that's not a real big number for you. Let's look at the list. And we looked at it, and we looked up a couple of the profiles. I said, now there were 2 clients in that 14, potential clients for you, because you told me your target audience, and you've done nothing with them. I said, that's the crazy part. You're listening to too much vanity and too many of this stuff, and those folks are your people. And not all 12 were right, but 2 out of the 12. But you had to look at all 12 profiles, didn't you?
That's like leaving money on the table.
No question.
There you go.
Yep.
Must be nice.
They raised their hand, didn't they?
That was the mic drop moment. Well, we could talk about this for hours, but I know we're running out of time, so I've got one last question for you, and we're going to talk just a little bit about new developments. You touched on it a little bit, and I think I saw in your post today or yesterday, Clarine, there's some new developments coming out on LinkedIn. Do you want to serve up what maybe 1 or 2 of those are?
A lot of new developments on LinkedIn. So even one that's not as so new, but a lot of people aren't leveraging on the LinkedIn stories. And so LinkedIn Stories is one relatively new feature, and similar to other social media platforms, you know, the bubbles at the top where you can put a graphic or a quick video or, you know, make a post, and it's underutilized by a lot of people because they don't understand it. One of the things that some people don't realize is, unlike on other social media platforms, you can add hyperlinks to your LinkedIn stories. And that can be a game changer for some people. And so using that and taking advantage, but my biggest and most exciting development with LinkedIn is the creator mode.
Okay,
where
tell us about that.
They're focusing more on supporting content creators and helping to bring more traffic and more engagement for those who consistently post organic content. Right? And so going away from the process it had been in recent years with the influencers, so the big number of people, the kind of LinkedIn celebrities, going to those who are consistent on the platform with original content and being able to support them with additional features. So some things are changing and happening to really prompt more engagement.
What about newsletters? I think that was something you mentioned. Are you familiar with the newsletters? Just explain to people briefly what that means and what.
Well, first of all, you have to apply to get it. Okay. And LinkedIn it's interesting.
Applications are gone. You can't apply right now.
I was just going to say.
Not apply to get, you have to apply to get LinkedIn
But
Live.
you can't
but even the newsletter.
Newsletters, if you post articles consistently enough, you'll get access to the
Not
They haven't done
anymore.
that with me.
Not
They haven't done that with me.
And not anymore, too. I
Right.
was just reading,
Yeah.
just this morning, in the middle, I woke up this morning and was reading something, and there was a lot of conversation on one of the groups about how newsletters are not, there's a fear that they're actually being taken away, or that they're going to go away. Because they're not, part of the deal with the newsletters is that they're supposed to be emailing the followers of the new, and actually receiving an email, and that's not happening. Well, there were people that were talking about that not happening. I personally get them, but they were talking about these particular newsletter writers were saying that theirs were not getting emailed out.
I have a newsletter, and I've had it for almost a year, and my subscribers is continually growing, and people get the newsletter notifications as via email. And I actually love the feature because I publish consistent articles, but because of the value of the subscribers receiving the notification, I get many more viewers for my newsletter articles than I do for my actual personal articles.
And that's the problem with LinkedIn.
Right.
The problem.
Well, no, I agree. The people that have newsletters love newsletters.
Right.
I've been trying to get on newsletters for 2 years.
Right.
And you've been on the platform.
And I write organic content consistently.
Articles? Are you publishing consistent articles?
Yeah, and they don't, and I've looked it up in the help center, and I've sent them a note, and
Right.
they're so inconsistent with some of these features, and they shouldn't be, because there's a fairness thing here too, right? You don't come out with something and then not give it to and have it available to the people that want to have it.
More importantly, the high users should get the new features first.
Yeah,
so their rollout process is so
horrible.
I agree with that. The rollout is horrible with new features, because it's like I'll be giving a training to people who are totally new to LinkedIn, and I'm looking at their computers, I'm assistant, and they have something I'm like, wait a minute. So the rollout process can be improved. I agree.
It seems like every time and every time is maybe the wrong word, but a lot of times I'm doing a training with someone and I'm like, oh, this is new. Oh, they moved this. Oh, wait a minute. Constantly changing.
Interesting.
And so it's one of those things that a vigilant eye, has to really see. There's a really cool feature for people that are in job search that I don't know if you've ever talked to your people about saving their profile as a PDF. You click it, and it's a great way to be able to see what your profile says in a Word document type format. Well, now right underneath it, they have something called Build a Resume. And you can it will populate, if you want, your profile and put it in this really basic form of a resume. But then you can edit different pieces. And so what's really cool, and then you can use that if you are applying for jobs using LinkedIn.
So you don't have to make a second one.
So you don't have to make a second one. And it serves the purpose, of a resume. Resumes are kind of boring, It serves the purpose of really being able to get the attention of the employer.
Okay.
So that's kind of a cool thing that I just found out. I don't know how long it's been here, but I just discovered it within the last week or two.
Okay. So to close out the show, I'm going to turn it back to Wayne for one last thing. One piece of advice that you could just give to somebody on LinkedIn,
you got to put together some kind of a routine. After you do the strategy part and stuff we talked about, you got to make it every week I do these things, I spend this hour doing these things, and it's got to get into your schedule. Because if it doesn't get into your schedule, then you're hoping and praying that LinkedIn is doing all the work, heavy lifting for you, and it's not going to happen. And then you're going to get frustrated and say, why is everybody getting stuff out of routine? It's because they have a routine.
Okay, what's your last piece of advice, Sue?
My last piece of advice is do not succumb to the companies that want to help you grow your business by force feeding and using bots, because those are against LinkedIn's terms of service. And so those automatic messages and the automatic checking of likes and viewing profiles, it's against terms. So just don't even do it.
Okay. Last piece of advice?
So my biggest advice, I especially give entrepreneurs, or don't use virtual assistants for your LinkedIn profile. And I'm sorry to virtual assistants, but you have to be fully engaged with the process. It has to be you. Your personality, your information, and real timing, all of that has to come across. People do business again with those they know, like, and trust. They have to get to know you, not your virtual assistant, and only you can convey you fully. So that's my biggest no-no to entrepreneurs. Business owners, don't use virtual assistants, sorry.
Do the work.
Yep, do the work. I love it. Well, guys, you guys put in a lot of work here, and I want to say thank you, because this was incredibly informative to everyone. And I would encourage anyone watching this, if you have questions, you need help with LinkedIn, you've got 3 of the best people in town here, reach out and ask, because they definitely can help you guys improve your profile. Wow, that was an incredible conversation we had here today. Thanks again to Wayne Breitbarth, Sue Gresham, and Clarine Mitchell for their insight. I'm sure there was something there for everyone. If you enjoyed this episode or have an idea for a future episode, make sure to leave a comment below and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow Young Guns on social media and listen to audio versions of our show wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, I'm your host, David Bellman, president of Bellman Homes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.